Hey guys. So, our guest today is Kimberly Aguilar, who is a very special guest. She is actually my cousin and one of my best friends. We grew up together, visiting each other all the time. We spent a lot of the holidays together, definitely Thanksgivings. And in college, we lived together. Kimberly probably knows more secrets about me than anyone else. In fact, it's super weird that we're sitting here talking about babies and stuff and you're drinking hot water and I'm having peppermint tea because every Saturday night for the 4 years that we were in college, we went to a place called Yanni's in Tallahassee. We went to Florida State. That should tell you something. And every Saturday night was 80s night at Yanni's. And Kimberly and I would dance our faces off. And and then Sunday morning, we had this 2-story house and I would come out on the second floor balcony. Kimberly would be laying on the couch already, and I would toss my comforter and pillows over the balcony and go meet her downstairs in the living room, and we would watch hours of Law and Order SVU. I can no longer watch.
I just saw a thing yesterday,
dude,
that made me think of it. There was 2 people sitting on the couch over, and I was like, "That's us."
Yes. Yep. That was life for quite a while. And now I can no longer watch SVU because I have a daughter, and it terrifies me. It puts really disturbing thoughts into my head. So no more.
I tried to watch Home Alone 2 this morning, and I couldn't because the whole time in Central Park, I was like, "Oliver, don't ever do that. It's not safe there."
Yeah. Exactly. So I'm super pumped. Thank you so much for taking some time to do this. I know about your birth stories, and I think I know a lot about that experience. Actually, I'm so excited to be able to actually sit down one-on-one and talk about it some more, especially Eloise and her story and your experience after she was born. So why don't we start with just I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, talk about who your kids are, how old they are, anything else that you want to add in there.
Yeah, so I have 2 kids. I have a son who is 4 years old, Oliver, and my daughter Eloise will be 2 in March. And I stay home with the 2 of them, and we are together all the time. My husband works and, is very helpful and present at home on the weekends, but during the days it's just us. And I adore them and I love them, but being a mom right now is pretty much who I am, all day.
Yeah.
So, and it's great. I love it. Definitely got its challenges, but it's, normally right now they would both be sound asleep quietly, and it just always works out.
Of course.
They're not.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we're just the 3 of us a lot of the times, having our own little adventures.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay. So let's go back to, I guess before Oliver was born, your experience getting pregnant with him and into that first pregnancy, or Oliver.
So we decided, it was just kind of that time we had been married for a little while, and we decided, hey, I think it's time that we start trying for a kid. And I kind of just assumed it would happen kind of quickly, and we started trying, and then 4 months into it, it's I'm pregnant. Yay, this is happening. I'm so excited. I was going to, yoga classes and just so prepared and ready, and starting to feel pregnant. And around 8 weeks, I went in for my first prenatal appointment and was so excited. And I just remember seeing the baby on the screen for the first time, and Aaron and I holding hands and looking at each other, and it felt like such a special moment. And then I remember the nurse kind of pausing and saying, there should be a heartbeat, and there wasn't. So she brings in another doctor, and they confirm it. And then I ended up having a miscarriage and a D&C. And that was very difficult, I think, because it was at a time where I don't think you're really aware of how common it is until you start looking for it or hearing about it. And eventually, now I just feel like it is such a common thing. I've heard so many stories from people I knew who never I'd never known had been through something like that. Mm-hmm. But I think it's really hard. It was very hard for me kind of wondering what my story was going to be. Was I going to get to be a mom at all? Was I going to have to go through fertility treatments? Just kind of wondering how it was going to turn out for me.
Yeah.
And that was in February. I think that most of that happened, and I didn't get pregnant again. It was December, and we were going into the city, the symphony. And I remember we went to see Messiah, and during that hallelujah moment, mm-hmm. I was sitting in the chair, and I was like, I'm pregnant. And I just had this feeling.
Oh, God, I just got chills. Wow.
And so I went home, and it was December 21st, and I took my pregnancy test, and it was positive. And I was so excited. And I was like, okay, I have to keep my big mouth shut for 3 days because I want to tell him on Christmas Eve. And I took another one to be sure. And then on Christmas Eve, he was like, hey, do you want to exchange one gift tonight? And I was just like, oh, yeah, let's do it. Let's exchange this one gift. You go first. I had a gift, and it's a yoga mat. And I was like, okay, thanks. I'm going to win this.
Yeah.
And then I handed him, I had a little Christmas stocking that he opened up, and inside it was you're going to be a dad. And it was such a great and special moment. And it felt so right, and I think with the first pregnancy that ended up being a miscarriage, we didn't have that kind of moment. It was just kind of I'm pregnant. Look at that.
Wow.
And that was it.
Yeah.
And so this moment just felt like so much more than that. And it was a great pregnancy. I felt very good. Oliver came almost a month early, just enough that he was healthy and just had to have a little bit of the light for his Billy Reuben. But other than that, mm-hmm. he was a very respectable, polite 6 pounds, 11 ounces. Nothing too extreme.
Yeah.
Considering he was a month early, I'm extra grateful because he's very large. And it was just the labor even was almost like what they say in the movies. They tell you it's not going to happen like the movies where your water breaks when you rush to the hospital. But I woke up in the middle of the night and my water broke, and I went to the hospital, and the whole thing lasted about 9 hours, and mm-hmm. he was there, and he was beautiful and healthy, and we got to take him home, and we just kind of stared at him for months and months until we started doing something back.
Yeah.
And it was good. I kind of think my attitude for that pregnancy about labor was, I have no idea what it's going to feel like. And so I just didn't really go in there with any expectation. I didn't have
there wasn't a plan. You weren't desperately trying to create some specific way for it to look.
No, I didn't know really much about my pain tolerance at that point. And so I always just thought how do I know if I was going to want an epidural or, or if I can do it naturally. And I went in and I almost made it, I think, all the way before I said, I want the epidural.
Right.
And then there was a bright light and an angel came into the room. I said, put this giant needle in my back, please.
Right.
And then everything was great. I think after I'd recovered and had Oliver for a little while, I started to second guess the epidural. It was great in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think the recovery was harder than I thought it would be. And I thought a lot of it was because of the epidural. It slowed everything down a lot. So I ended up pushing a lot longer than I think I would have otherwise.
Okay.
And that was harder on my body. But I didn't have, at 6 weeks, they cleared me for everything. And
right.
You're great. Do 50 Kegels a day and you're set.
I know.
And,
oh, God.
So I was out running again and out doing all these jumping jacks and things where I was
totally. You're like, I'm doing all the right stuff, right? I'm getting back in.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
Yes, it feels like my uterus is about to fall out of my body every time I try to do something.
But that's normal, right? Everyone.
That's normal. Right?
Yeah.
Part of having a baby, right? So I started to look into it more, and I started to get, like if I was going to do it again.
Yeah.
I kind of became a little more like, I think that with Oliver, I could have done it without the epidural, but because I was kind of wishy-washy about the whole thing, it was very easy for me to say, okay, I'm ready, I want it. And nobody was going to try to talk me out of it or say, no, this isn't what you want to,
Yeah.
I hadn't told Aaron, like, this is important to me. I think it's better for my health. So he definitely was not going to deny me an epidural.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And he never would, but.
It's so hard because it's like, if you, like, I also was like, I don't know what my pain, like that type of pain tolerance is. I've never, fortunately, been like seriously injured or, I broke a bone once when I was a kid, but like who remembers that? So it was so weird to try to like plan for that. I don't think that you can.
Right.
And yeah, I think, there's to some extent like you have, just like as I'm sure, your experience, like you have to surrender over a lot of control. And it's a fine line between like, well, am I fighting something that maybe I shouldn't fight or doesn't need to be fought? Like, is this the right battle for me to pick right now?
Right. And I think that I was like, the best thing for me to do is not be stressed. So I don't want to go in there and be stressed out because my plan isn't going exactly as I wanted it to.
Totally.
And so ultimately that was my goal. And I do think that was a very, very good attitude to have with the first experience. It was my attitude with breastfeeding and I just think kind of not trying to force my idea of everything ended up going very well for all of us. Yeah. Overall. And then there's the second one.
Well, can I pause you for a second?
Sure.
You have, I remember like being in college and all of your wonderful baking, God, your mom's baking, and your focus on like nutrition over the years has been something that I've learned a lot from. And I feel like it played a role in your pregnancy with Oliver. Do you mind like talking about that a little bit?
Definitely. So I didn't have gestational diabetes with him, but I failed, I think, one of the glucose tests. So I had to take it twice.
Yeah.
And then whenever I came back, I had glucose intolerance.
Okay.
And I went to a nutritionist, and that was kind of frustrating because I basically paid $25 for her to tell me that Trader Joe's has really good peanut butter pretzels.
Okay.
But I did a lot of research on, how I basically at that point just started eating like I had gestational diabetes.
Okay.
And I think I was a little frustrated because I felt like I already had eaten pretty healthy.
Yeah.
But then I became pretty strict with myself the last part of my pregnancy. But I think it was very good. I think that actually helped with my recovery and everything. I was very good. I remember planning my meals and doing a lot of eggs in the morning, no dairy or anything until later in the day when the hormones have kind of died down, and doing small meals. I really, and continued this, just got very good about eating proteins with carbs and stuff. So even after I had Oliver, like if I'm going to have a donut in the morning, I always try to eat it with like some protein or something on the side. And just trying to make the best choices for him at that point. And it was one of the easiest times I've ever had eating well, because it was very easy for me to say, okay, this isn't a good choice for the baby that's inside me right now. If I want to eat that, I'll eat it later.
Yeah. That book that we've talked about a little bit, the Real Food for Pregnancy, she talks about that, like, okay, so some days you're going to have a donut, but what you can do to manage it, and this really helped me a lot, was front loading the donut with nutrition, like nutrients. So have the protein, have the healthy fat, have the, healthy carbs, and then have the donut. So like you're at least getting some nutrition.
Right.
And maybe you're not going to be quite as hungry, I guess, to have 6 donuts, You're more likely to manage that a little bit better.
Right. Or maybe it'll also like have like a lower impact on like your blood sugars and stuff.
Exactly.
Which is, such a important thing. And that was something I don't think I ever really thought about or did before that pregnancy, but it is something that I do instinctively now.
Yeah.
If I'm going to eat something.
Well, you probably feel a lot better and not like crashing from a donut.
Right.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than me crashing and then the whole house has to pay for it.
Oh man. I may have seen a little bit of that in college.
1%.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So then fast forward, Oliver's growing. He's adorable. And was it a conscious decision to start trying again, or what happens next?
Yeah. As soon as he was a year old, I think we were like, all right, time for number 2.
Wow.
And it was an eerily similar situation to the first one, except that I wasn't so blindsided. But we did have the pregnancy, and it was kind of the same thing almost, where when we found out, it was a very blah moment. I don't know. I just feel like it just didn't quite feel right ever. And I went in for my first ultrasound, and it was a few days before Christmas. And they're getting ready, and before she even shows me the screen, I just looked at Erin and I was like, there's nothing in there.
No way.
Yeah. And she turned and she was like, yeah, there's a sac, but there's no baby in it.
Oh my gosh.
And the hard thing about that, I think, was that it was the holidays. So like a lot of the staff, I think everyone's out on vacation and living their life and doing stuff, but I had to have all this blood work done, and I'm like sitting at home on Christmas Eve waiting for the call that's going to tell me if I'm pregnant or not. And it never came. And so it was just kind of hard. But the difference is like, it's so much different compared to the first one, where I go home and I'm like just wondering if I'm ever going to get to be a mom.
Right.
And this time I come home and Oliver just comes running up and is like so happy to see me and hugs me. And I think that's like the beginning of really looking around at like what you're grateful for.
Yeah.
And for me, it was the beginning of really just being able to look in my life and like say, okay, I have this beautiful, healthy, wonderful boy, and my family was there for Christmas, and it just made it a lot easier. And I ended up, that miscarriage I had naturally on New Year's Day, which was different. The first one I had the D&C, which, it's quick and whatever. But this one I wanted to do naturally because I figured after I'd already had one baby, I could handle this, and I could. And it was,
Oh God, Kim.
manageable. But yeah, it's just, I was lucky Oliver was like sleeping when I went through it. And
Did your parents? Did your parents know at the time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They knew. So then I kind of got through it, and then it was just kind of like starting to try again. And this one was the day, instead of the day before Christmas, this was the day before the 4th of July. I took a pregnancy test, and it was positive. And Aaron looked at it this time. He looked, and he made me wait the entire amount of time. And then he was like, yeah, it's been positive for like...
Oh my God, Aaron.
And the second I looked at it, that was just, it was very exciting. And, and then that was, and I found out I was pregnant with Eloise. And it was a completely different experience being pregnant the second time.
Yeah. How so?
Well, I get really bad morning sickness. Not compared to, I know some people have like really bad morning sickness, but I do get morning sickness, even with the one that was a blighted ovum. The most annoying part was that I knew I wasn't pregnant, and I still had like terrible morning sickness for the last part of it. But this time I have a 2-year-old that I'm chasing after, and I'm so grateful to my friend who had a boy the same age, and I would just go over to her house with my box of Triscuits and like lay on the couch while she put both boys in the tub and got them in their jammies and stuff. And Aaron was traveling a lot at that time, so I was also home alone, just me and Oliver a lot. And it was a very intense 2-year-old, a lot of tantrums. Anytime we went anywhere and the fun ended, he would just completely melt down. And
oh man, so, Kim, honestly though, that sounds familiar. Like we never wanted the fun to end. Yeah.
I had a meltdown over the
Or like, no, like we both did.
I will say, I do think college truly prepares you for parenthood.
Yeah.
It's in so many ways. I'm just like, I'm for this.
Right.
And stuff me.
Yeah.
So it was hard. And then I think, at that point, your joints have already kind of loosened up and stuff. So you start to feel all those aches and pains.
Yeah.
A little more. And I think I was sick for the first 20 weeks.
Whoa.
I was getting sick. And then I had a really good break over the holidays, lots of energy and very like nesty and second trimester glow and all that. And then in the third trimester, she got into a position where her head was banging against my left hip.
Oh.
And it was, it made it hard for me to even walk or stand.
Wow.
And so sometimes I could do yoga and get her in a position where I could like at least make it to the grocery store. I think people constantly, when I was out in public, thought I was about to go into labor because I would be walking and just like bend over and grab my hip like, oh. And I had so many people like ready to, help this pregnant woman deliver this child. I'm like, no, it's just how my life is right now.
Wow.
So, and because Oliver was a month early, I was so convinced that Eloise would also be a month early. And so I had lined up people to be staying in our house for the full month before she was born. And then we just had people in our house for an entire month before she was born. And it was family and people who are wonderful and wanting to be helpful, but it's not a huge house, and it was just it got stressful. And my parents were in the house for 3 weeks before her due date.
Yeah.
And I went in, I'd already had a sweep done. I'd been eating pineapple core after pineapple core.
Yeah.
I'd been drinking tea and bouncing on balls and dancing naked by the light of the crescent moon, whatever I could find to like,
Yeah.
you know, make this baby get out of me at this point. I was tired of not being able to do the exercise that I wanted to do. I was just sick of feeling kind of stuck on the couch and very frustrated. So I went in for my appointment at 40 weeks and my blood pressure was high. And they did another sweep, but they also sent me to the hospital. And they checked me for preeclampsia, which I luckily did not have, and I was just diagnosed with gestational hypertension. And oddly enough, the longer I was in the hospital and away from the house, my blood pressure started to go down.
Oh my gosh, sometimes it's the opposite because some people are more stressed in the hospital, or like there's this, what is it called? The white coat syndrome, where like anytime a doctor is going to test it, then it goes up. But you had some stress going on at home. So it was, I guess, the opposite.
And I think I was like, okay, I'm checked in, like it's going to start happening. And I'm such a food person. So I like check in and they bring me my lunch and I love the food. Good. And they just deliver it to you.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, I've got my food, I've got my playlist, and I've got my beautiful my board that we made.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay.
Board?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have it, everything just, you know, I'm like, it's happening.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought it would be like Oliver where things started picking up. And that was like 11 o'clock in the morning. And we walked the halls of the hospital the whole day. And I was having these adorable little contractions. Oh, isn't that cute?
Right.
These aren't nearly as bad as I remember them being. Like, I can totally do this.
You're like, I've got this. Cool.
Oh, ouch. That's cool. And nothing was happening. And nothing was regular. And we were just kind of hanging out, watching Parks and Rec and trying to make stuff happen. And then they tried something. I don't remember what it was, but my water did break naturally. But then it was kind of like the clock was on a little bit, like it's going to happen. And then around like 11 o'clock at night, everything stopped. Like nothing was happening anymore. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm going to have a C-section or something. And just kind of I was starting to get anxious and I was tired.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
Even, you know, I probably didn't sleep well the night before. And it was just kind of starting to feel like frustrating that nothing was happening. So the midwife came in and she said, I'm going to try a couple things. And in hindsight, I wish I'd said, why don't you try one and let's see what happens. But I was like, yes, do whatever.
Yeah.
So she basically did something where she jostled the water bag. And then like when my water had broken at first, it was kind of a trickle.
Okay.
And this was like, okay, the water broke.
Whoa.
Like everything is out. And right after she did that, they hooked up the Pitocin to my IV. And then she left the room.
Well, and did they like tell you that that's what they were going to do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like, okay. All right.
Right. So I think I underestimated what the effect of just having the water completely break.
Okay.
I think if it had just been that, then my body would have started to naturally labor. But I had the Pitocin in. My body didn't just start to labor. Like the second it touched my IV, then I just started having the craziest, strongest contractions that I could ever dream up in my head.
Yeah.
I tried every position, and Aaron and I, you know, kept trying to move around and find ways to get comfortable. I remember being on the yoga ball that I brought, kind of like face down so that I was laying on it, hugging it. And my body was shaking and the yoga ball was bouncing and then my body would stop shaking, but I couldn't stop like bouncing yoga ball. And I remember being like in my head, this would almost be funny if I wasn't
in so much pain. Yeah.
So that lasted for like 30 minutes. I had been 3 centimeters, and then I was ready to push. And that was 30 minutes after they'd done this. So Aaron went out. I said, first I said, I want the drugs. And he was like, no, you don't. And I was like, shut your mouth, get me the drugs.
Yeah. Well, so had you guys had that conversation beforehand about like,
yes,
okay.
I said, I would like you to try and talk me out of it this time.
Okay.
Because this time, knowing that I had gotten so close with Oliver, I really felt like I could do it without the added complications or recovery from the epidural.
Okay. Because
with the first epidural, there is a lot of like catheter discomfort, and like the pushing is very hard on your body. And,
yeah.
I just felt like I could do it.
Okay. So again, he says
he wasn't going to say no.
Right. He says no like one time, and then he's like, okay, whatever you want.
Right.
Yeah.
But then the nurse comes in and says, it's too late. She said, and all I had to hear was, we'd have to resuscitate the baby. And so I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Great. I'm doing this.
Yep.
But then Aaron tries to go find the midwife to tell her, I'm ready to push. And he can't find her. And they kept saying, like, I think this is right. He said, they were like, oh, okay, well, we'll be in a few minutes. And he's like, no, like, this baby's coming now.
Yeah.
So then there were 2 nurses in the room, and they were, like, about to just deliver the baby, basically.
Yeah.
I pushed for 30 minutes with Eloise. So after they put that Pitocin in and jostled the bag, she was born an hour later.
Wow.
And I don't know if everybody has this, but I don't remember that much of it because I think your brain kind of blocks a lot of it out.
Yeah, you go to another planet.
Yeah. I know she came out with her hands up around her face, and everyone was laughing. And I remember being like, not in a very nice way, like, stop laughing or I'll end all of you or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then she came out and everything, the pain stopped and the midwife had shown up. And so she, she delivered Eloise, and she said, I have to give you a stitch, but it seems silly to give you the painkiller. And I was just like, I don't think I need a painkiller for a stitch after that, it's.
Yeah.
But I did it, and it felt great that I did it, It felt really good that she was there, and okay.
So I remember a little bit like before, as we were leading up to it, Kelly, your sister, was in town. I came up to visit, and you were really in this place where you were like trying to prepare for labor or for birth, and trying to prepare for maybe doing it without the epidural. And you were kind of in this place that it seemed like you were, I don't know, doing a lot of work or reflection or something to do that. We made the board. Can you, I don't know, just talk a little bit more about some of those things, and if any of it in the end stuck with you, if you remember it, if you would ever do any of that stuff again, or what you might do differently?
Yeah. So the one thing is, I think wanting to do it naturally this time around brought around a lot more anxiety than I had with Oliver. And worry, like, was I going to be able to do it?
Yeah.
And if I was, like, what was it going to be like?
Yeah.
And I think that was an anxiety that wasn't really present when I was with Oliver, because I was so kind of, we'll just see what happens.
Yeah.
With him. And I think when you guys came to visit, it was so life-saving for me at that time, because I think I was a little down about it,
Mm-hmm.
And so, you guys went out and got this beautiful poster board and magazines, and I still have one of the magazines. And we made this kind of beautiful vision board. And I remember specifically there was one picture of like a little girl running through a field.
Yeah.
And I remember that one just kind of almost being like the image I thought of the whole time, kind of getting me through. Just this image of like she looked like a little girl that could have been my little girl, the hair color and everything like that. And I think focused in on that little picture and made it my own. And then you made me that playlist, the Cosmic playlist, and I would go on these long walks and just listen to it and kind of use it to relax myself. And I think that was very helpful. I think the music is like a really good thing to put your mind in a right place and kind of relax yourself thinking about it. Aaron and I were not great about practicing like all the different positions and stuff that are supposed to be.
We weren't either.
Helpful.
Yeah, we were exhausted and busy.
Yeah, like I want to like watch a movie. I don't want to like put a clothespin on the back of my arm and start practicing.
Yeah.
Terrible like positions. But I think I did what I could, but I think I just felt kind of helpless about some of it. I do think having somebody like a doula or somebody there to talk to about that kind of stuff would be very helpful, because also having somebody there who kind of knows, because I think the husbands feel as lost as we do, if not more.
Yeah. Yeah. They're terrified. And I mean, I don't think that, like, we definitely didn't practice the positions and stuff. In fact, Jeb told me, I was like, hey, I feel like we should work on some of this. And he at one point was like, oh, I have a plan. And I'm like, okay, are you going to let me in on this plan? He's like, no, I have to keep it a secret. Yeah. Otherwise it won't work. I'm like, what are you talking about? But yeah, I think I did try to get him to understand this, like the science of it, of like the biology of what happens during birth, so he wouldn't be like so confused or so lost about all of the different stages and all of that. But other than that, like, I imagine it's super intense and overwhelming for them.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not like if he does something that's annoying me in that situation too, I'm also going to be like, I don't think it's like the movies where you're like, for me, it wasn't like that, but I would be like, stop doing that. Like,
yeah.
And, I think he probably feels kind of helpless in that moment. I know for Oliver's birth seems so whatever with me, but I know there were points in that where things were happening. Like I had a fever and stuff like that. There was kind of drama going on that I wasn't, this is the story of my life. There was drama going on like right next to me that I wasn't really like aware of or paying attention to.
Yeah.
And it was that way with the birth too, where I was just kind of doing my thing and not really aware. But I do think that they're in the preparation, having the mindset that I wanted to do it naturally. I do kind of wish I'd had somebody to talk about it with. Mm-hmm. Somebody to say, you can do this, it's going to be okay, and not feel like they're just saying that because that's what I need to hear.
Okay. Yeah.
So because they've watched people do this and they, really believe that this is something that I am capable of. Because I don't know that I really felt that I was capable of it. Mm-hmm. And I think if I did it again, I would do natural again, because the recovery was a lot better than the epidural. So much better. I felt like myself faster and back to myself. And there were, like annoying things like the pain from the needle in your back and like just little things that you don't really need to be dealing with then. I think it's nice to not have to worry about that stuff.
Yeah.
So I would try it again naturally. And this time I would just, if they tried the Pitocin, unless it was absolutely necessary, I would like, just say no.
Let's try something else first.
Right. Let's do. Because, I mean, have you ever seen the graphs of what the Pitocin does for the contraction?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I've heard if I did so much.
Yeah. I would know that I could do it. Yeah. I have done it.
Yeah.
But they both have, I think both ways would have their place,
For sure. It's so interesting when it's like, I hear the language of like, oh, I almost made it, or I couldn't do it, or something like that. And it's like, well, but you did, it was just in a different way. And I know I've heard this a lot, and I don't really know. In the moment, maybe it doesn't mean a lot. I actually remember thinking about it with Callie, but that idea of like, no one's coming around to like give you a prize either way, I mean, right. The prize is the baby. So right. Whatever path you end up on to your baby is ultimately the right one, the best one. Obviously, just like, I think like you're saying, being educated in terms of, oh, this is what would happen if this is what my recovery would look like with an epidural, or this is what the contractions or what my body is I can expect with the Pitocin. And you can choose those things, and sometimes they're necessary, but at least having some kind of idea of what to expect when you do make that choice. But either way, you did make it, you did
right.
do it.
And there's even after Oliver was born, you get that first, like after the shower, after you've had a baby and been through all this. And I just remember feeling so amazing.
Oh,
like
that's awesome.
I felt like a superwoman.
You are.
And that was cool. And it just, I felt like I don't know, like leveled up in life or something like that.
Yeah. You did.
Very cool. And it wasn't any different, either method.
Yeah.
I think his was a little more relaxed because of it, but it is a little more difficult for recovery.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, so Eloise is born.
Yeah.
And then?
Yeah. So hopefully I don't cry when I'm talking about this, because I don't know if I've ever really talked about it.
Hey, and you just do what you can.
Yeah. So she's born, and the pediatrician comes in and they're examining her and everything. And they're really examining her, and I'm kind of sitting over in the bed waiting, and Aaron keeps saying she's healthy. But the way he was saying it meant something else was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so after a while, they handed her to me, and it was very apparent that something was not right with her skull.
Okay.
Her face was squished kind of at an angle, and the top of her skull was very misshapen. Mm-hmm. There was a large dent in the right side of her head. And I looked at it and I was like, that's where she was hitting against my hip bone.
Wow.
I mean, I swear I could see like the groove of where she had been hitting. And that's what I feel. I don't know that I necessarily have had like a confirmation that that's what was happening. But the pediatrician hands us this giant stack of possibilities of what this could be. And it's full of terrifying things. And we're kind of stunned, just in shock. And he comes back a few minutes later with a new packet of paper, and he says, I think it's this. And He said he thinks that what she has is craniosynostosis, which is all babies, have soft spots or sutures in their skull. I believe there's 5 or 6. And every now and then, in a baby, the sutures will fuse prematurely. Mm-hmm. And that matters because their brains grow so quickly and their heads grow so quickly. And if their skull cannot expand with that growth, mm-hmm. It will affect their brain. It will affect their development. It will affect them visually and can cause deformation. But the hard thing when she was born is that nobody can tell us that that's what it is, because she could just have been cramped.
Wow.
And squished. So nobody can say for sure. But it seems like that was it. And she was, her look and appearance was extreme enough that something was likely wrong. Mm-hmm. And it was hard because I think that really a lot of the people in the hospital don't really know what to say about a condition like that.
Yeah.
I had people hugging me like, oh my gosh, we're so sorry for that, that this is such a tragedy. And then I had some nurses coming in like, oh yeah, they just open it up and they're fine.
Wow. That's
so it was a big range. Yeah. But the pediatrician said that she would likely need surgery when she was 6 months old to open up her skull, if that's what she had.
And they said this, the pediatrician said this right after birth. Like, you're still in the hospital. Okay.
I think he said that before I was even moved to like my new room.
Okay.
So obviously I started Googling in the middle of and if you Google it, it's actually a very scary condition to Google and look at the images of. And there are so many different syndromes that it can be associated with. And some of them are very serious as well and have a lot of other issues. So I was very overwhelmed. This was not like anything I'd ever been faced with or experienced. And she's so little. And I think that my reaction to it was to quickly look around and start counting all the things we were very lucky to have. Like, we have health insurance that was going to cover most of this.
Yeah.
We had access to great doctors. I can imagine being somebody who was faced with this and thinking, where am I going to get the money to help my baby, and even Aaron's job at that time, like, there was a situation that at any other job, he probably would have been laid off and we would have lost our insurance. And we're so lucky that that's not where he works. That's not how it works. They find other things for him to do. And I look at Aaron and I'm like, well, this girl has us, she has him. But I'm thinking, like, this isn't about me. I can't, you kind of want to melt down in that moment. Part of you almost wants to like, be like, why is this happening? Mm-hmm. And I think it was really the first time in my life that I was faced with like, I don't have that option. Like, she needs me to advocate for her. She needs me to be here for her. And that's the only choice I have in this moment, is to be here for her. But it's hard because you don't know at that time what is she going to be faced with? Just how is she going to look?
Yeah.
And how are people going to look at her?
Yeah.
Because it was a very noticeable thing.
Yeah.
Her face was, and it actually, I guess, got worse over time as her brain grew. But I think one of the most beautiful things is that I never saw it after a while. She's my perfect baby.
She is.
No matter what.
Yeah.
And I just thought she was the most beautiful baby in the world, and she was.
Yeah.
But It was a lot. And it was 6 weeks before anybody could give us a definite answer.
And was the answer?
She had complex craniosynostosis. So she had a combination of sutures that our neurosurgeon had not seen ever.
Wow.
So there was one of the side where there was the ridge was closed, and then her sagittal, which is down the middle of her head, was closed. But in those 6 weeks, I took her home, and I looked at her every single day. I took a picture of the front of her face to see if it was just unfolding.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just that she was in a bad position, and maybe it was just needed to kind of open up.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really happening. So we went in when she was 6 weeks old, and they did a CT scan and confirmed. And we met with 2 neurosurgeons and discussed a plan. And at that point, I knew that there was an endoscopic option that I wanted to try, where they could go in and it's a smaller surgery and less likely a need for blood transfusion. And they were very honest that probably would not be enough for her.
Yeah.
Because the case was fairly extreme. I'm going to move because my laptop.
Yeah.
So I think I tried to be very prepared going in for that, and I'm glad that I was, because there were things that I requested. It's an interesting mindset to have, because I'm trying to think about what she would want me to do when she's an adult.
Right.
Like, she's going to look back one day and she's going to want to say, why didn't you do this? Or why did you do this way? And I went in and they were talking about it, and I requested that they have a plastic surgeon, because it's much easier to fix these things when they're small and their heads are soft. And if she's going to have this major surgery anyway, why not have somebody who can make sure she gets the best results?
Okay.
So we did the endoscopic procedure when she was 3 months old. And it's very hard handing your baby to somebody.
I can't imagine.
Having them, they're so little. Having them take them away for surgery. It was a 4 or 5 hour surgery the first time. But they're amazing because we were home the next day. They took out her skull in 2 places.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and they put metal springs in on the inside of her head. And the great thing is that this whole time she started smiling at us, and she's developing beautifully, and she's so interactive, and all those signs that you want to see we're getting from her.
She has the best smile. I mean, really, it's magical.
Yeah. Well, and those are the things that matter the most too. And it is getting that feedback from her. Yeah. It's almost like her saying, like, look, I'm so great. I'm smiling at you, and I'm making eye contact, and I'm doing all the things that I should be doing.
Yeah.
She was so engaged with her brother, and but it was a lot of work. It was a lot of doctor's appointments. I started getting migraines, which I'd never had, where it wasn't like a painful migraine. It's like I've lost my vision.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I finally ended up, going and talking to somebody and taking care of myself a little, which was like a really big step in me being able to be there for her. And she had the second surgery in November when she was 8 months old. And that was an even bigger surgery. We were in the hospital for 3 days. And now it feels very behind us.
Yeah.
and doing wonderfully.
Yeah, she's
And
amazing.
she is amazing. She's hysterical.
Yeah. Are there any more, do you know of any more like surgeries or treatment or anything like that that you would have to expect down the road?
And not not if everything just kind of continues as it should. There's always things can always go wrong with anyone anytime, I guess. But
Yeah.
with her, there's a few elective things that she can have, but it's stuff that they would do when she's kind of old enough to speak for herself and just see if she wants something done because sometimes there can be holes in their skull that are visible.
Yeah.
And so you can go in with fillers and fill it in and stuff. And then sometimes the scar tissue can become uncomfortable, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So they might have to go in and sew the skin at some point, redo the stitching.
Yeah.
But otherwise, she's normal and nothing seems to bother her, and hopefully there's not really any issue.
Yeah.
But
so what were some of the things that you did to eventually end up taking care of yourself?
Admitting that I needed to let myself have that breakdown, that I just denied myself so much when she was first born. Just letting myself be upset that she was having to go through this. I called my mom, and she came out and gave me some time to myself. I was having a lot of physical pain, I think, because in my head I was like, I'm fine, everything's fine. And then all of that anxiety kind of physically manifested itself in pain. So I went and talked to my doctor and got a massage, and I went and I saw a therapist once. I didn't feel like I got very much out of that particular visit, but I think that's more to do with just it not being a fit with the woman I saw. But my general physician gave me a prescription for Zoloft, and that helped. I don't know how I got through the first surgery without it. It did help me a lot with the second one. And I think it didn't make it so it wasn't stressful, but it just made it so that my anxiety wasn't like just going everywhere and hitting everything. But the anxiety about her became anxiety about everything around me. And so it kind of just took that edge off, so that I could be there for Oliver too.
Yeah.
And get out, because it was a hard time. We were in the house a lot because she had to stay healthy for both surgeries. So we would spend like the month before kind of cooped up.
Yeah.
And that can be very isolating and depressing.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends happened to move away at that point too, so I felt very alone. And I think that kind of saying I need the extra help of the medication was a big deal for me, and doing it because I've kind of been against it a little bit. So, but at that point in time, it was a lifesaver.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for talking about that, Kim. I know that is probably really hard. Is there anything that you want to share, let's say with like a new mom or someone expecting? Is there anything that you'd want to tell yourself, going into another experience like this again? Anything else that you would want to add?
Oh, I know. I'm like, well, the thing that comes to my head is like actually one of the things that almost annoyed me the most when I first had a kid.
Yeah.
Just at how quickly everything goes by.
Yeah.
But it's not saying it in the sense that like, not in the sense of like, oh, soak up every moment because it goes by so fast. I think we all know that it goes by quickly. Like we can feel it going by quickly. But almost in that like, it goes by quickly also in the sense that like, it's hard today, but you will get through it. Even on the days when you're not feeling your best,
mm-hmm.
just the fact that you're there and you're doing it is a great thing.
Yeah.
And the hard parts are all part of it being amazing as well, I think, because Eloise's experience was the hardest thing I've ever done. And it's also one of the most amazing parts of my life is learning what a support system I have.
Yeah. Yeah. And what an amazing mother you are, I'm sure.
You know, I'll try. We're all locked in their rooms while I do a podcast.
Totally normal. Okay, one more question. In what way, like what is the role that street parking has played for you in your life, in motherhood?
Well, back to like nobody telling you anything about, you know, how you're cleared at 6 weeks and then you just go out and do whatever you did before. That makes me so mad when I think about it. And I think street parking, because I was always a runner and I did yoga, and I kept trying to find safe ways for me to get back into shape, but I was actually always kind of like, well, CrossFit type stuff isn't my thing. But I kept seeing your stuff on Instagram and I loved how mom friendly it was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't do this, like, not don't do this, but this is better and this is safer for dollars came to give me a kiss. This is a safer version, modification for moms. And I loved seeing that because there just isn't a lot of resource out there unless you're looking for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember I called you and I asked you about it, and you know, gave me some information, and I joined and I did the challenge, the challenge to start. And it was, I loved it. I loved how efficient it was. I loved I could do it while my kids were like around me.
Yeah.
That it wasn't, I had been doing like bar classes that were so expensive, and I like, okay, my muscles burned for a minute while I was doing it, but like I would do these classes and not feel anything. And I just kind of started to feel good again, like physically good. And so, it's been really important to me because carrying all these kids around and stuff can be very hard on your body. And I feel like I'm getting some strength back, and I'm doing it in a way that's nurturing
for
my body.
Awesome.
And not damaging.
I loved seeing, I think it was the Miranda vs. Julian challenge when you joined, and the video of you doing forward rolls down the hallway, like with the kids. That was amazing. But I feel like that's really what street parking is all about. It's like, don't take yourself too seriously, move your body, have fun, and potentially you're setting a really good example for your kids and spending time with your kids, you know, not taking away from it.
Fun with that. And I honestly, like, I just thought that point in my life was over. I mean, it sounds kind of
right.
At like 35, I'm not thinking like, oh, I should be doing somersaults. But I thought, I was like, can I even physically do that? And I tried, and my kids were like, Eloise was somersaulting off of everything. By the end of the day, I was like, okay, bringing it a little, but it was fun. We had fun, and I do like feeling like I'm setting an example for them of being healthy, and exercising. But I like to be able to do it at home and make it not 2 or 3 hours of my day.
Of course. Okay. Well, I think that's about it. Unless there's anything else that you want to say.
No, I'm okay. Thank you for asking me to do it.
Kim, I'm so glad that we got to do this. I'm so thankful that, man, you shared your story. And personally, I'm so grateful to have you in my life because you've helped me so much. Kim's the person that I text message or call whenever I'm like freaking out about being a mom, about anything mom related. And she brings me back down. I can't wait for our kids to meet and to do Thanksgivings together. Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
We'll invade you at some point. It'll be totally chaotic. It'll be the best.
Perfect. All right. Well, that is it, Kim. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll talk to you again soon.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.